Welcome back to another review by Mega Train Lover, and today we're having a look at a locomotive which I got for Christmas. First of all, Merry belated Christmas and also a very Happy New Year. It's the first review of 2022, and to kickstart we are looking at a locomotive which, as you can see, is by Hornby, and it is a locomotive which I have had in the past, the original version, but this is the newly retooled version. Now, my original locomotive, I've sold the one with the old tooling, and then I've got this one for Christmas. You can probably tell from the box that this is a LMS design engine, and to be more specific, it is a BR Princess Royal class called Queen Maud number 46211, and as you can see, it's in BR Brunswick green livery with the laid crest. If we turn to the side, its product code is, if it focuses, R3855, and it says DCC ready, but I've already fitted it with a decoder. I've also given it a run-in, and in fact I've fitted it with a TTS sounds decoder. However, for the purposes of this review, I will not be showing off the sound, because I basically want to show off the locomotive as it comes. So obviously, because it does not come with sound, I'm not going to show the sound files. It will just be running without the sounds. The sounds I'll show off in a future video. Right, so firstly I want to talk about the model itself. The Princess Royal class by Hornby is probably the oldest locomotive that Hornby still makes, because this particular model traces its origins back into the early 1950s. Now, I've got this book, it's a really good book, called Hornby Book of Trains, First 100 Years. And if we just go to the 1950s, this is 1930s, 1946, and if we just go, let's quickly, and yes, here we go. So, as you can see, this company called Rovex, which was, I think it was later brought out by Triang, and you can see the Rovex Princess Elizabeth. So this was a design from 1951, and it's still in production. You know, that was 71 years ago, and it's still in production today. Obviously not the same tooling, and obviously over the years they have updated the tooling. The last update before this one was in 2001, and this current update came out a couple of years ago or so, and this one is a much more finely detailed version compared to the original. I've sold my original one because I was intending to get this one just so I could have basically a higher detail model, but basically you can check out my review of the original version called Princess Arthur of Connaught. Anyway, that's all there is to the model. We're going to have a look at the detail in a bit. Now it's on to the actual history of the class. So the engines came about because the London Midland Scottish Railway, LMS, was basically facing a motive power shortage. There were not necessarily a shortage, but there was a lack of powerful express engines. Now, the Royal Scots were introduced a few years before, but there weren't really enough locomotives of that type. There were only about 70 of them. So William Stanier, who became the chief mechanical engineer for the LMS, he basically got to work to design a completely new engine, which would be of a Pacific wheel arrangement, so 462, and the prototype number 6200, I think it was Princess Royal, was built in 1933, had crew works, and it was followed shortly by number 6201, Princess Elizabeth. In 1935, a further 10 locomotives were built, taking the total up to 12. One of these locomotives was even, I think it was number 6202, which was the prototype turbomotive, which was basically the locomotive. How do I explain it? It didn't use cylinders in a conventional way. It used them in a more sort of It's quite hard to explain how the turbomotive basically used the steam, but it basically generated a lot more power, and it could accelerate much faster. But it wasn't all that successful. So the turbomotive program was not really proceeded with. But it was in service for quite a few years, right up until 1952, when the turbomotive was rebuilt with conventional cylinders, so conventional four-cylindered layout. But sadly, just a few months into service, it was involved in the Harrow and Wealdstone train disaster of October 1952, and as a result the locomotive was scrapped, and it was later replaced by the only BR Standard Class 8 Pacific Duke of Gloucester number 71,000, which was built a couple of years later in 1954. The remaining 11 members of the Princess class, they were put to work on the London to Glasgow expresses, particularly the Royal Scot, and these were the first locomotives that could run more or less non-stop between London and Glasgow. Obviously the Royal Scots could do the run as well, but these particular engines were much better suited to it because they were a lot more powerful than the Royal Scots, and these could tackle the gradients of sort of like Shap and Beat, or basically without any trouble. The Royal Scots could do so as well, but these just flew up Shap basically, so they were a lot more powerful. The class was withdrawn in the early 1960s when the West Coast Main Line was electrified, and out of the 11 members of the class, 2 of them have been preserved. One of them is number 6201 Princess Elizabeth, which is probably the flagship member of the class, and I believe it's not operational at the moment because I think it does need a bit of work to its blast pipe, but it was in service for a short time in about 2019. The other surviving example is, I think, number 46203. Don't remember its exact number, but I do know it's called Princess Margaret Rose. That particular engine was in mainline service until about 1996, when it was withdrawn, pending overhaul, and is currently at the Midland Railway Centre in Butterley, awaiting its next overhaul. This particular engine, Queen Maud, number 46211, was built in 1935, and it was originally allocated to Camden Shed near Euston, but then it was later allocated to I don't remember where exactly in the north. Let me just quickly read it, because if you look on the back of the box you get tons of information. So this particular loco, yes, so it was allocated to Camden, and it moved to Crewe North in 1939, and then it stayed there. So originally it was a temporary stay, and then in 1943 it moved there permanently. And in 1956 it was at Edge Hill for about 2 months, and it was withdrawn in 1961. Sadly, this engine was scrapped, but the good thing is we have 2 of these engines still preserved, and we also have this particular engine, Queen Maud, represented in model form by Hornby. So anyway, the next thing to do is to put the box aside, because the locomotive is not in the box. Just put it aside, and here is the actual locomotive. Now, due to the size of the engine, I have split the 2 together. So you basically the plug and socket arrangement which you get with all Hornby locomotives nowadays. So I've just put the tendon to one side. I'm going to have a look at the engine first. Oh my gosh. And here she is. I mean, wow. She's absolutely beautiful. I mean, you know what, I'm just not going to speak for a moment. I just want you to look at this engine. Just look at it. I mean, she's absolutely beautiful. I mean, First things first, she is really heavy, and when I say really heavy, I mean really heavy. That's because whilst the body is made of plastic, the entire chassis, right down to here, the I think this is the roller bearing, but all the the firebox here, all of this is made of die cast, which gives it a lot of, obviously, more weight means more traction, which is very, very prototypical of the real engines. There's the name, Queen Maud. Just focus. Yep, there we go. And my God, I mean, the level of detail on this is incredible. Just to clarify, these two lamps, I fitted them myself, as I do so with all my locomotives. It does have sprung buffers, as you would expect. It's got all these separately fitted details, such as the lubricator boxes and all the lubricator piping just next to them. I mean, just look at the valve gear, look how intricate that is. It's really, really nice. You get separately fitted handrails running along both sides of the boiler. You get separately fitted smoke box start, separately fitted lamp irons. Yeah, I mean, it just looks absolutely beautiful. Delivery as well is stunning. If you just focus, yep, you see the BR Brunswick green with the sort of black gold lining is really, really nice. And if we just turn to the cab, you can see, look how beautifully detailed the cab is. You get the regulator and the reverser, you also get all the pipe work and the gauges, and you even get a glowing firebox door, which is just absolutely incredible. That you'll get to see once it is on the track. You get the roof vents here, which can be opened and closed, as you can see. This one's a bit sticky, but yep, there we go. Might need to give that one a bit of a lubrication, just so it moves a bit more freely. You also get the safety valves and the whistle, and you see here this is where it connects into the tender. You also get all the injector piping just beneath the cab, really, really finely detailed. On the other side you get the speedo cable. You also get the reversing handle running down the length, about half the boiler. You also get this extra pipe, which I'm not entirely sure what it is, don't exactly remember, but yeah, you do get it, and it is prototypical. You get the top feed and the dome. You also get the steam pipes here, which look really very, very characteristic of the Princess Royal, the curved steam pipes, because all these cylinders are situated a bit further back from the smoke box, like sort of at the rear of the smoke box, which looks a lot nicer than the Stanier Pacifics. Yes. You also get the builder's plates on either side, which are legible, which is really, really nice. And yeah, so overall, I mean, we've only just looked at the engine, but it is the level of detail is stunning, much better than the original version from about 2001-ish. I mean, that was a really, really good model for its time, although obviously by modern standards it is quite outdated, but it's fine. It lasted, and it's still, it is still a good model. The original one, don't get me wrong, it is still a good model, but this one is better. It is a major improvement to the original one. What we're going to do now is we're going to put the locomotive down, or the engine rather, and we're going to have a look at the tender, which is just here. And you can see I've added the realistic coal. The tender looks just as nice. Obviously the detail is a little bit more not necessarily basic, it is quite intricately detailed, but obviously there's not as much detail on the tender as there is on the engine. But whatever detail is needed is there. Separately fitted lamp irons, you get the sprung buffers, the sort of small steps that leads up to the top. You also get bar here, which is screwed to the locomotive. The BR late crest is absolutely beautiful. I mean, it's just printed so nicely. Coal, obviously, you do get default, like a sort of default coal load, but I prefer to put realistic coal on my models just for a bit more realism. One thing I really like is how the little details are, little text like water scoop and handbrake, they're actually printed on, and if you look carefully, that is just such a nice touch, and it is really nice, rather than just having a blank panel. It is actually it is actually legible. To the right you get the water scoop, and then to the left you get the handbrake. Really nice. I mean, yeah. So overall this engine is just beautiful, absolutely beautiful. However, one thing which needs to be obviously we need to see is how well does it run. I'm gonna put the locomotive together, put it on the track, and see how she runs. So here we have the Hornby Princess Royal Class Queen Maud on the track, and wow, just look how imposing she looks. She's absolutely beautiful. Anyway, the first thing I want to show before we get on to the performance is the firebox glow, as you can see, and it does actually flicker like a real firebox. It's not a static light by any means. It does actually flicker, which is a really nice touch. Anyway, because now this engine is fitted with a TTS sound decoder. However, as mentioned, for the purposes of this review, because she's doesn't come with TTS sound by default, I'm going to run her without the sound, but I will be showcasing the sound in a separate video. Anyway, let's give her some juice and watch her go. And here she goes. Wow. She's just running absolutely beautifully. Really, honestly, nothing much to say. Let's see a few shots of her passing. So yeah, as you can see, she's running brilliantly. I mean, she does have pickups on all 6 driving wheels and all 6 tender wheels as well. So, see, pickups, picking up power is obviously a very minor issue. But yeah, no, it's absolutely beautiful. I love the valve gear as well. Yeah, all in all, this engine is just absolutely brilliant. So just to conclude this review, I highly recommend this model, especially if you're a steam engine enthusiast, or if you just like the look of this model, or you want to model Midland region or LMS or anything. This is this model I highly recommend. It is a must-have. It's really well detailed. My example, no sort of build quality issues. But yeah, all in all, it's just a fantastic model, great performer. Anyway, thanks very much for watching, and see you in the next review. Goodbye.